Hi, this is Ramaji from Ramaji.org, and today I'd like to be as practical as possible about how to do self-inquiry. I've talked to a lot of people about it, and there's a lot of confusion about exactly how to do it. And I think it's important to remember that you really must focus on one thing and doing one thing. There is so much information out there. It's a real case of information overload. And that probably applies even to how do you do self-inquiry. So when there's a state of confusion, one of the best things to do is to resort to an established expert. And of course, that's Ramana Maharshi, but in addition to Ramana Maharshi, we have the advantage of having access to writer-editor David Godman. And he's probably the leading scholar of Ramana Maharshi's works today. At least that's my impression from reading him. And he has two books, well, he has many books, but he has two books in which he provides an extended quotation, his interpretation, his words, of what Sri Ramana Maharshi was saying in terms of how to do self-inquiry, and not just what it is, but how to do it, and really what that whole path is, what that journey into self-realization is. How does it work? Kind of an overview, kind of a big picture, kind of a map. And so David Godman does as good as anybody has done, I think. The two books are by David Godman are Living by the Words of Bhagavan and No Mind, I Am the Self. And this quote can be found in both of them. So I'm going to comment on David Godman's short essay, which, as I said, can be found in both of those excellent books. And it really is complete in itself, but there's probably a few things that need to be clarified. So, as you no doubt know, but just to state it once again, self-inquiry is a meditation technique. It is used to attain enlightenment or self-realization. It existed before Sri Ramana Maharshi brought it to the world, but he is the one that made it a well-known term and a well-known practice in the 20th and 21st centuries. It is in Sanskrit called Atma Vicara, which means inquiry into the nature of the true self. So here we go, how to do self-inquiry by David Godman, based upon the teachings of Sri Ramana Maharshi. Okay, here's what David Godman says. It was Sri Ramana's basic thesis that the individual self is nothing more than a thought or an idea. He said that this thought, which he called the I thought, originates from a place called the heart center, which he located at the right side of the chest in the human body. From there, the I thought rises up to the brain and identifies itself with the body. I am this body. It then creates the illusion that there is a mind or an individual self, which inhabits the body and which controls all its thoughts and actions. The I thought accomplishes this by identifying itself with all the thoughts and perceptions that go on in the body. For example, I, that is, the I thought, am doing this, I am thinking this, I am feeling happy, etc. Thus, the idea that one is an individual person is generated and sustained by the I thought and by its habit of constantly attaching itself to all the thoughts that arise. Sri Ramana maintained that one could reverse this process by depriving the I thought of all the thoughts and perceptions that it normally identifies with. Sri Ramana taught that this I thought is actually an unreal entity, and that it only appears to exist when it identifies itself with other thoughts. He said that if one can break the connection between the I thought and the thoughts it identifies with, then the I thought itself will subside and finally disappear. Sri Ramana suggested that this could be done by holding onto the I thought, that is, the inner feeling of I or I am, and excluding all other thoughts. As an aid to keeping one's attention on this inner feeling of I, he recommended that one should constantly question oneself, who am I, or where does this I come from? He said that if one can keep one's attention on this inner feeling of I, and if one can exclude all other thoughts, then the I thought will start to subside into the heart center. This, according to Sri Ramana, is as much as the devotee can do by himself. When the devotee has freed his mind of all thoughts except the I thought, the power of the self pulls the I thought back into the heart center and eventually destroys it so completely that it never rises again. This is the moment of self-realization. When this happens, the mind and the individual self, both of which Sri Ramana equated with the I thought, are destroyed forever. Only the Atman, or the self, then remains. Okay, that is the words of David Godman, and they are taken from either of two books by him. He has many books. One is Living by the Words of Bhagavan, and the other is No Mind, I Am the Self. No Mind, I Am the Self is a book I've talked about in a number of occasions because it documents the teachings of Lakshmana Swami, who is a living devotee of Sri Ramana, who received realization through grace from Sri Ramana while Ramana was in the physical body. So very special to have him and to receive his teachings. Okay, so I would like now just to make a brief comment. I'm going to keep this video brief, but I just want to make a brief comment. The crux of the matter, the challenge as I see it, and I'm seeing this more and more with the students that I'm working with, is that you really, really, really must you must understand that first and foremost, this I thought must be separated away from all of the other thoughts. And this point was made repeatedly in the quote, but it gets missed. I have people ask me all kinds of questions that have nothing to do with the I thought. I am waiting for somebody. Well, there's been two people, and they, by the way, are the most advanced. Interesting coincidence. Not a coincidence at all, of course. They are the most advanced, and they are the ones that tuned in immediately to the significance, the central role of the I thought, and they were immediately able to drop the associated thoughts, the worldly thoughts, the thoughts about others, the thoughts about us and we and me with them and me and you, and they focused on the me, on the I thought, on the I feeling. So that's the thing. You have to recognize that you have to do surgery. You have to do a surgery where you isolate the I thought. Just like a surgical procedure, you isolate the I thought. Then once you've isolated the I thought, you can then excise it, meaning you can remove it. But if you do not do that in what amounts to a two-step process, then the I thought will keep regenerating itself. It will keep renewing itself in association with other thoughts. So Ramana says the I thought, or literally I am the body thought, rises up to the brain from the heart on the right, the heart center on the right. Yes, but that's only the beginning. Once the identification with the body, I am this body, has taken place, I mean, that's just the beginning. Then it's all of the involvement with me and you, like he said, she said kind of stuff. You know, I'm now involved in my relationships, my marriage, my parents, my kids, my people at work, my boss. So all of these relationships, and then everything that we belong to in terms of organizations, and then the whole world. So you have to keep coming back to the I thought and separating out the I thought itself, which is where the method of self-inquiry comes in. So it's not mentioned here, but I know for a fact that Ramana said, ideally, and the most sincere and serious practitioner will do this, ideally you are handling every single thought as it arises. If you do not do that, it begins to multiply. It attracts all these other thoughts to it, and it becomes like a gang, it becomes like a crowd, it becomes like a mob, a thought mob. And that's very different from a single thought. So the I thought's very clever. It surrounds itself with all these other thoughts. So you have to get it alone. If you're going to get rid of it, you have to get it alone. So you use the self-inquiry in the form of, the way I teach it, basically in the form of, who are you and where did you come from? 2 steps, who are you, where did you come from? And then the I thought falls, crestfallen, bows its head, falls into the heart, or falls down, and typically only to rise up again and again and again and again. But you want to be dealing with it as if in a boxing ring. You want to be dealing with it one-on-one. As soon as it arises, and this is during the day, not just in the morning, when it arises undetected, it immediately gathers all its buddies, and then before you know it, you're dealing with a thought mob. And you're never going to defeat the I thought. You're never going to isolate it and conquer it and eliminate it if you're dealing with a thought mob. You cannot defeat the thought mob. What you can defeat, what the power of the self can come forward and do, is defeat the I thought once it's been isolated. So that's the journey, is one of isolating the I thought separate from all the worldly thoughts that have to do with other than the first person I. So there's a second person I, which is you, like me and you, and then there's a third person I, which is them. So there could be me and you, and then there could be them. So me and you, I and you sitting in the cafe drinking coffee, and then across the street, oh, there's them. So they're the third party, you're the second party, I'm the first party. I'm the first party I, you're the second party I, and they or them are the third party I. Well, you have to stick with the first party I. And then you're able to identify that the first party I is being simulated or faked by this I thought, and then you're able to begin dwelling in the I feeling of the first party I, or the first person I. You dwell in the feeling of being the first person I, which is deeper than the I thought. And then that is actually the self, that is actually the heart, and that is what allows the feeling, the pure feeling of I, the pure feeling of being, to expand and eventually come forward and consume the I thought and eliminate it, because the I thought is an imposter. Okay, well, that's pretty much all I wanted to say. There's, in theory, a lot to say about this, but the bottom line is that it is a practice. It is a practice. And you have to do it. And the reason I'm recording this and talking about it right now is just to clarify a major point of the practice, which is to really get going with it. You must be isolating the I thought from the rest of the thoughts that are about other people and other activities about the world. If you can't do that, if you don't do that, then I don't know that you will have much success with self-inquiry. Self-inquiry, the purpose of self-inquiry is to isolate the I thought, and then once you've isolated the I thought, to experience the essence of it, which is really the I feeling, the true I feeling, which is your true identity as the first person I, so that you're no longer thinking that you're this false I thought which thinks it's the body, and you're realizing that you are the pure being, and then eventually the self comes forward and manifests in its fullness, and the I thought is dissolved. And okay, that's it. Thank you for listening. And those books, again, by David Godman, were Living by the Words of Bhagavan and No Mind, I Am the Self. And then I also in many places recommend a work by Sadhu Om, which is available for free online at happinessofbeing.com, provided by the translator Michael James. And that's part 1 on the teachings of Sri Ramana Maharshi. Okay, many blessings in the self. This is Ramaji wishing you much success and self-realization using Ramana Maharshi's self-enquiry technique.